Hello, I will call to order the April 2nd, 2025 budget subcommittee meeting. Thank you everybody for being here. Start with grants and gifts.
Thank you, Chair. And as folks may notice, we are moved to a Zoom webinar platform. We reinstated this feature. We had it last year and eliminated, but it's back now. So folks can see us and hear us. Can't see you or hear you, but when it comes time to public comment, we will utilize the Q&A feature of this Zoom webinar. Grants and gifts. So the only updates are for grants. The business office staff participated in a webinar today on continued ESSER auditing and reporting. The other update I have is on gifts. We are pleased that we finally saw the complete transfer of funds related to the Chapman band gift is now securely in a school bank account.
Oh, great.
Yes. The fine folks at GoFundMe were great once we got someone on the phone. And anything else on grants or gifts, Alyssa?
No.
All right.
Moving on to audits and reports.
All right, audits and reports. Before we get into the sub bullets there, the committee should have received quarterly reports today of year-to-date actuals.
Yes.
Through Q3, which is March 31st. Our revolving fund, if you look at revolvers, that fund is in deficit on paper only because we work with the town accountant to make it a true revolver again where it captures the rolling fund balance. So don't be alarmed when you see a negative amount in food service. That's our healthiest by far of all of our revolving accounts right now. And the other one that is in the negative is revolving for Voc Tech. It's an old name, but it's one of our CTE, and we're using that as a pass-through for the CTI activity. So as we bill, it's a reimbursable grant. So as we're paying people and stuff, we then put in for reimbursements for the state. So the timing of that is such that it just shows as a negative position at March 31st. But once Alyssa and Jen do the requests and drawdowns of funds of the grant, that'll become back into a positive position. On the operating budget, finish my screen here so I can share the agenda. There we go. And on the operating budget, year-to-date, so year-to-date reports in there, but we're looking more closely at the projection for the rest of the year. And at this point, we are in deficit projected in a couple of accounts. Utilities, not a surprise, and transportation, not a surprise. And then staffing, we've added staffing throughout the year for student needs. And so we are, as of right now, projected deficit, but Alyssa and I will look and monitor as we start to close out POs. We put basically anything that at this point in the year that a principal or department has encumbered, we're going to honor that spending. But we're almost to April vacation, so we don't really see new significant spending. So we're going to look at what our bottom line is available for expenses. And then likely, we typically don't have to do this, but we will likely have to do some transfers at the end of the year to bring our operating budget in balance. And this is not a surprise. What will be a surprise is if we can't do transfers to bring it balance. That'll be a bigger surprise. So that's just general audits and reports. So financial management procedures. Actually, I'm sorry, I do have one more. And this is just, do we have it in here, Alyssa? This is the capital.
We didn't put it in the.
So in the committee packet.
In the committee packet.
In the committee packet, you should have a.
We said we would give to them. They liked it.
We've been asked about, and we can post this certainly. We were able to pull this together in short order. Just spending we've done to date in capital. So we have capital measures for the high school, so we've done a lot of spending
The last two
Um,
pages, sorry.
for replacing furniture. The golf carts, you remember from FY 24, we purchased the golf carts. Technology, we've done our data center updates, our firewall improvements. We've purchased a number of equipment items. And then with CTE, this is where you see a lot of the spending and capital funding that we finished. So the press break is hooked up at the high school. We're just waiting for the company to come out next week and flip the switch, do some training of our teachers in that space. The childcare play area. So was resurfaced with pavement. We're gonna be putting in fencing and then we're putting a coating on, almost like you see at Chapman over by it's like that smaller play area. It looks almost like a mini tennis court. So it's called Nova coating. So we're doing that work for high school. Then with the more recent measures for capital curriculum. We've got our purchases of Cengage. And
Second
then,
step,
I'm sorry,
second step.
second step. And then the other noteworthy is athletics in collaboration with Town Park and Rec. So you'll see if you go by the high school, you'll see a lot of work being done at the softball field for a new scoreboard. Eventually a new scoreboard at the stadium. This has worked to get that all procured and ordered. And we are now seeing also fencing work that's being done at the softball field, and that fencing work will also continue at the baseball field at the high school that JV and freshmen play on.
Can I ask a question? From the special child? What's it, how did,
Yeah, it's a question.
Because I
I'm just
didn't-
gonna be honest.
that's volunteer base.
I know, so.
Also, there was a
We-
significant decrease in going to it this year.
Yeah, there was funding, and this could be something through the town to help support. Well, you say volunteer?
They're all volunteers that swim with the child.
I don't know if it was pool related. Yeah,
It was related to the pool.
because
The rental, maybe?
I don't know if it was a rental or work done. We can find that question out.
Yeah.
I saw on
I'm-
my list to find out.
I assumed it was. But even the middle school didn't go this
I
year.
think it's just primary. It's been going
Yeah.
because of the capital. It wouldn't be people necessarily, so they might have done some work with filters or the pool itself or the work around. I'm just guessing because we pick up because of the park and rec and the scoreboard and fencing. That money was really appropriated to the town, and we're just partnering with them. That somehow was made it in this report, but we'll verify that for next time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
So on to financial procedures. We are updating so you have a copy of the financial procedures. This is our financial management procedures, everything you want to know about finance. For the school department. We have this document readily available. We update it each year. We share it with administrators. We focus new administrators on understanding the procedures. And what we're updating, and we've already updated this, we did it early in the year, but we're now bringing it to the committee because we bring it to you guys once a year, is the fundraising procedures. And there's been a lot of conversations and questions around fundraising lately. And we discussed it at our athletic subcommittee the other night. So really what we're trying to impress upon, whether it's, it's really about school department, school employees, school sponsored fundraising. So we pull the procedures basically from 4 policies, which you see here: ADF, GBEBD, JJE, JJH. And then we also pull fundraising activity from MGL as it relates to conflict of interest laws. And we just make sure everything's in line with development procedures. So just some of the points from the procedure: all fundraising activity must have prior approval of the building principal or cost center manager and superintendent or designee. As we mentioned, must adhere to law and policy. We do have a process for fundraising requests. And whether it's school sponsored or co-sponsored, we do have links to approvals both for pre-K through 8 and through high school. I think, and what we're kind of struggling with and working through this year as we started this really, really go back to, we found that many things kind of got with the pandemic, we kind of lost, I think, everywhere. We lost a little bit of control of things. We're trying to bring some control back, some clarity. We got new folks in the last few years. So just understanding what is a school sponsoring a fundraiser and when it's not a school sponsoring a fundraiser. So we've developed a definition below, and it's really around, you know, but well, it's like a duck, right? It's that type of thing. So it's like when it looks like and perceived to be school, then it's school. So how do we kind of wrap our heads around, like, what does that look like? So if it's our staff or students running the event, we're going to say that that's school sponsored. If they're handling cash, if they're using accounts, personal bank accounts, we're going to say that's our staff, so that's school sponsored. If there's other resources being provided, if it's taking place in our buildings or on our grounds, school sponsored. And if the activities we promoted through our platforms, school sponsored. So I like to always give the example of what's school sponsored and what's not. So if it's something happening in the gymnasium during a sporting event, you know, we do have a process and people follow that. They're like, hey, we're going to set up a table and sell things, and great, that's school sponsored. We'll prove that. And then we talked about the example at Boost this last week with the athletic subcommittee that if it's at a restaurant in town, a meat raffle, it's not our staff running it, collecting money, going in their accounts, we're not promoting it, doesn't have to be approved. Like, it's going to happen. And then whatever group or individual, they're just going to donate a check to us, right? So I do think we need to still work with staff on understanding these, because really it's not even driven by like what Brian and Mel want or what school committee wants. It's really driven by policy and law. So I think that's what we're trying to clarify for folks. And I think the convenience of social media in the last few years has made it super easy to do a lot of stuff. We talked a lot about crowdfunding, but we're just trying to get a little control on it. Because, you know, one day you get a call from the IG or the AG's office and you have to answer, and it's 99. Alyssa has to deal with this with her MCPPO stuff. It's like 99% of the state might be doing something wrong, but all it takes is one person to get called out. And so we're just trying to prevent that. So we actually have reached out to the state just to kind of clarify some of these things, like when is it staff, when is it not staff? Is there a gray area? What's the gray area? And then we will update, we will work with the principals and the department heads who approve these fundraisers and make sure they understand what's school sponsored and what's not, and when it is school sponsored, what we can do and what can't we do.
It's constant work. I think, you know, sometimes we think it's training new people, but then it's like veterans that are like, oh, we used to always do this, you know, and they haven't done anything for a while. And they think like, you know, 15 years ago, we used to do this, you know, fundraiser all the time. So it truly is constant messaging. And we appreciate all of you sometimes when you break forward, like, hey, I just saw this out there, because it does really take all of us to have eyes on things to kind of catch it in. Not that it's still willed, it's just people not understanding the law, really.
Right, and that's what we want. We want folks to share ideas with us, and if it's truly school sponsored, we want the proper approvals. Because again, you know, I think about when I was a kid, you know, I would go to Stop and Shop Canning or in the football stands, you have the 50-50 that gets passed around. The state, no one really notices or cares, but I think what gets tricky with us is social media, and that's where we just really want to. The optics, and it's like in a lot of our trainings we've dealt with in the state, if it's perceived to be like improper, then it's improper. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like you err on the side of just, you know, find someone else to do it, find like a friend to do it. And then, like I said, well, we appreciate, because we're going to get into that. We appreciate when the community helps out and steps up. So.
Is there a certain time frame? So like say folks want to do a fundraiser for tennis, let's say. And is there a certain time frame associated with they should have the principal approve it within a certain time frame so they can initiate it? So like if they're planning a trip, let's say.
Yep.
and they want to fundraise for that trip, is there like a certain time frame they should be kind of set to?
Yeah,
Make sure it gets approved within. 10
because it
days.
does, it goes through, so it gets approved by so let's say, an athletics one would get approved by the AD, then approved by, the principal, high school principal, and then it gets approved by myself on behalf of the superintendent and the school committee. And then it loops back to that person. If it's in our buildings or on our grounds, they also have to do, along with it, a building usage. If it's not part of like a school sponsored event already, like I mentioned, the basketball game.
Yeah.
But if it's like its own event at its own time, building usage has to be filled out. So ideally, we try to turn it on as quick as we can. For myself, you know, I'd like at least 24 hours to see something and respond to it. So add to that, maybe the principal. So I think the principal's expectations of their staff is, you know, 2, 3, 4 days, ideally a week, you know, but a lot of events you need to plan. So it should be weeks out. It really should be weeks out, if not months out.
You're doing an event.
So just for the record, Canning and 50/50 saying, can they do it or?
So good question. Who's they?
That's all right. So if it's boosters
Yep.
at a football game or a soccer game, can they do 50/50?
I'm not, if I'm there, I'm watching the game. I'm not there policing the activities in the
Okay.
stands.
All right,
If that answers your question.
yes, all right, Canning then. So if they,
Canning is typically solicitation, so that if they're.
not on the ground, but if they do it, say if they go to.
Like Stop and Shop. if-
So what the
if they
law
go through
says-
The law.
The law says that if if someone walked up and said, that looks like a Weymouth Public Schools athlete, then it's a Weymouth Public Schools athlete. So it would have to get, it should get some sort of approval from the coach and the AD, like the
Okay.
coach telling the AD.
All right.
And that's the same thing with, why we stay, the crowdfunding is tricky because it's really online canning, in my opinion. I think school committee, you guys have a policy on crowdfunding. It's really discouraged. But like we talked about the boosters, if the booster parents are running it and organizing it, but it gets gray. It gets really gray. So
Like the car wash is run by boosters for the most
Mhm,
part, right?
right.
And everybody knows like this is a car wash for the swim team or whatever that
Mhm.
is. But Canning, I don't know, we just, like we said, we've kind of just refrained from that.
I know that was still a question after we left.
at
For a
the
lot of like
least-
safety reasons, like,
Yeah.
yeah,
you know, you have a 10-year-old kid outside and it's like, oh, you're supposed to have 2 people, but Johnny didn't show up, so you're
Right.
there by yourself. And
And there's
the
levels
parents
of-
aren't there. It's really safety as well.
Right.
yeah. So to me, there's levels of approval. So the car wash example, great one. So at the least, Mel and I aren't gonna be approving the car wash, but the coach and the athletic director should know about the
You
car
know that's
wash.
happening.
Know that the parents are okay with the kids being at the car wash.
Mhm.
So I think we just need that level of communication and approval. So it shouldn't go all the way up to like the form that we do that comes up here for some
Right.
events. But again, if it's on our grounds and it's our staff, and so that's where it kind of gets. So again, I think the car wash would be a great example of a gray.
Okay,
But again, and this is what, you know, when Rob meets with boosters, he can clarify that, like, hey, if you guys are gonna do a car wash with our student athletes, your kids, just make sure that the coach gets something in writing from the parents saying that they're gonna be there.
so can he maybe put together, like when he meets,
We've
with
asked him,
boosters,
yeah,
the list of like things that are
we've asked him to incorporate this into like
easy to approve and then ones that kind of questionable?
And even if it's not that you can't do the car wash, but these are the things that we would
Right.
expect at the car wash,
Right.
right? That the parents are there the entire time,
Yeah.
that, you know.
They're not standing in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
because we don't want to discourage, and we don't want people not to do things because they think there's this like long arduous process.
Right,
So I think, to your point, Mary Ellen, it's like, from our last meeting of athletics, as Rob's developing some sort of manual for boosters, that should be in there.
Okay.
But, and we can communicate that. I'm just gonna write
And even a
car wash.
reference for like your smaller, even extracurriculars, not even your athletes, to like go like, okay, this seems like an easy fundraiser for us to do. Here's kind of like a.
like robotics
Really
outside of
dummy.
Shaw's or something, yeah, you know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking.
So that's the fundraising procedure. Any other questions on that before we get into the Wildcat sponsorship?
Nope, no, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, this is very exciting. Let's take a minute to bring it up on my screen here.
Can I rewind for 1 second?
Sure.
Fundraising is not supported to benefit private individuals or organizations. Can you clarify what, like, can you just give me an example of what that would mean?
Great, great question. So obviously individual makes sense, right?
Yeah,
Organization, another tricky gray one we've seen is, so we have, groups like students are trying to raise money and stuff and learn how to like be, it's all that stuff. But it's very specific that for student activity dollars, they have to go to the benefit of students. So the example would be that we wouldn't do a fundraiser to send sneakers to Ireland for soccer players that don't have sneakers or something. Like, so it has to, if we're gonna fundraise, it has to benefit our students.
okay. Okay,
And that you can benefit students in education and staff to some degree, but my interpretation of that law is that it's student activities law is around benefiting the school department, not benefiting some organization somewhere else. And it gets tricky. I think kids want to, so it can't like run through our accounts, but if they, I think a good example is when they ask for donations of like toy drives or clothing drives.
okay.
Fine, like we collect it and then we just send it off to wherever.
Mhm.
I think that's a good example of where it's okay.
I was thinking
Capstone.
like Vika or DECA, like you could do one for the students, but you wouldn't necessarily do one for that organization for
Yeah.
DECA, like it would
Yeah.
be for the student specific.
Well, DECA,
Alright,
our piece of DECA, like when we participate.
Right, yeah, okay.
I think capstone was super fuzzy, right? Because the kids are doing what they,
Oh, yeah.
that real world application, right? Some raising awareness, some fundraising. Everyone's like, I'm supporting Weymouth High School students. You're like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
So there was a lot
Oh.
of
Yeah.
oversight for, and missteps on that because it's kids trying to do, something new for them.
So the donation of stuff that then gets sent off somewhere else is excellent. But if you think about, they want to raise money for some organization somewhere in the world, well, we have to get them that money. And so we become like the Bank of Weymouth at that
They're
point.
waiting checks to Weymouth Public Schools.
And there's
So
restrictions on,
cereal boxes at Nash are fine.
yeah. But there's restrictions on student activity checks,
Mhm.
like anything over 500 has to go through the complete warrant process. So if you raise funds for, again, some organization in Europe, and it's like, okay, now we got to make them a vendor. How are we gonna do that? Like, so
Yep.
it's the boring accounting side of it, but
Yeah,
we're not an organization, like we're a professional organization, so we have to set them up as a vendor, we have to get I-9s, we have to do all that stuff and.
and usually we don't know about it until they're like, I just raised all this money, here's the check. Now just write another check to them.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was a good question. They're all good questions. All right, I'm happy, so last time that we talked about doing developing some sort of sponsorship program. It's really to generate fundraising funds. So I'm going to call out and thank Alyssa, Kelly Powers, Amy, and Mike Manning even, because we had to do a lot of measurements around the district. So we're coming up with sponsorship, and it's based on our mascot, the Wildcat. And we have different levels. And I know we've talked about this in the past, and we've gotten some examples from the districts. And so it's really looking at different levels of sponsorship to generate revenue for the school district. So everything from, a Wildcat supporter, which is not just $100 to $500 where you donate, and then any of those donors' names go into one banner we put up. And then everything up through Wildcat Ultimate, which has different levels of sponsorship perks, I guess you could say. And the biggest piece of it is, so there's promotion, which Kelly is happy to do, promotion on social media. School committee policy is, advertisement it's all temporary in nature, right? Nothing permanent. So we like the idea of banners. We can put them up in the fall, take them down for the winter, put them up in the spring. And I did learn from Betsy Harris that long time ago, probably before most of us, Gus might remember maybe, no reflection on your age, Gus. But I think there used to be like a banner type program a long time ago.
There was, can I speak to that just?
Speak to that.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, it was back in the days of, when we had significant shortfalls in the athletic budget.
Yep.
Then AD kind of, with help from the community, started implementing a similar program. Nothing this formalized.
Yep.
But there were banners and sponsorship money collected to help subsidize, the deficits that were existing with athletics at the high school, and banners were placed on the football fans, the softball field fans. But it was nothing,
Formalized.
nothing formalized like this. It was sort of like, emergency actions.
Mhm. Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So that's, whoa. So ask, yes, questions on,
I did. So, with the measurements.
Yep.
Measure twice, cut once.
Yep.
How many will fit around the stadium?
so we're gonna roll this out slowly next year. So we've identified, so for the softball field, for example.
Yep.
That new outfield fence that was put in, I think it's roughly 200 feet. So we've said we could put roughly 25 there,
So they gotta go vertical or they go horizontal?
horizontal,
All right.
Yeah.
landscape.
Yeah.
Landscape.
Landscape.
Hot dog.
Landscape.
Was a hamburger hot dog.
At the,
There you go.
at the stadium, we would start with, again, roughly 25 on the fence facing the bleachers.
Yep.
On the baseball field, we don't think we'll get as much there activity, so we're looking at potentially 10 or 15 on the first base fence side. And then the work Mike's doing right now is identifying, it's a little trickier, it seems so easy, but then Mike brings up these points, I'm like, you're right, Mike. Chapman High School and Adams are used so much,
Right.
like every night, where they would make sense and how many would make sense in those spaces. And then depending on how it goes, we could always expand it, because I don't want to be littered with banners everywhere right out the gate.
Right.
But then it could expand to back to the softball field on Pleasant Street, the fence
Facing out.
facing out, which I'm double checking ordinance town. I don't think we have to like get.
We've had them
approval.
up before for various things.
Various
For
reasons.
events.
But not really a fundraiser.
Okay.
kind
Do
of.
it for Special Olympics.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like temporary banners. up
Temporary,
there.
I'm gonna say
So
no.
I think we'll eventually get there to that, but we want to start with those areas. But again, so we're looking at like
We could actually the tennis fence.
tennis
too.
fence. Yep.
Yeah.
Tennis fence, right?
Yeah.
So this is gonna start with
Yeah.
procuring up to 100 of them.
Okay.
It would be the two different sizes
And
Oh, banners.
banners. Yep.
is the graphics department printing them or are we sending them out to?
We're gonna send them, so we want them to last, because the idea is, that sounded mean.
I know what you mean.
We want like very.
Like the
Yeah,
grommeting and all that. stuff.
Yeah.
We just-
And all that.
Like
It's like the-
exterior level.
What did Mike call them?
With the
Grom-
grommets,
grom-
Grommets
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
big piece, or else they fly.
because
That's happened.
Yeah.
I've experienced this with some other, like, with sports leagues and stuff that I've been
Yep.
involved with. The idea is the company, they pay the fee once, right?
Right.
And depending on how well you take care of the banner, you incur the cost of the banner for a year, but then years 2, 3, and maybe a fourth year out of it.
Well, then my next question is like, so if they get damaged
We would
or
pay.
somebody.
Yeah.
Do we pay to replace them or are they paying to replace them?
No, we'll replace them. I mean, they would have to do another.
They technically are paying for it,
Each year.
but
Annually.
Each
So
year.
we can
Yeah.
save money by not reprinting them every year.
That's why we want to get really sturdy ones. We want to make sure that,
canvas materials.
Yep.
The storage.
and the partnership we have now with,
Although then
Gus
they'll
mentioned.
vent them too, so that the air can blow through them and not rip them.
Windbreakers, yeah.
So
It's so worth it.
Gus mentioned like what was in the past. When I came in, I think part of what makes this work too is it's really a collaboration between athletics, maintenance, and the finance office. So
Right.
those three departments are working together. Because it's maintenance that has to take them out and bring them back in and take care of them. It's the finance office that has to do the work to procure and even Kelly and Mel's office is going to think about like how we how we do the application for them, how we collect, how we track, how we.
Follow that. well.
So there's a lot to it, but I think it's a simple enough concept and, I mean, do the math of if, let's just say we sold all 100 of them, right? Times whatever level of sponsorship.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it could be huge, but what we're projecting is as we roll this out next year, we're gonna put a modest number of like, we think $25,000 we could generate next year.
We have our home football game this year coming up too.
Yep,
That's like a big draw
Mhm.
that we're not used to every year.
but local businesses do this, you know,
Mhm.
my own house, my wife does it with Babe Ruth and Cal Ripken League and the Street Hockey League and Town does it with Libby across the street here.
Right.
So it's a good time for us to jump on, especially at a time where we're cutting.
I appreciate it. I mean, I've been asking for it since I was on the other side of this. It just makes sense.
Yep, agreed.
No, I love this. I love the visual, but
The
the
menu.
benefits package menu. Yeah,
That's,
cute. Oh, I love it. Can we ask more questions?
Yes, I was just gonna ask if you had any other questions.
I do have
I know you do.
questions. So where's the money gonna live that we get?
great question.
And it's all good questions.
Alyssa and I have had some debate over this, and I think I think what makes sense. I was thinking initially it would go into an athletics revolver account, right? But if this can grow to what we think it could be, it would make more sense that it's district fundraising dollars that then school committee, we can allocate to whatever, you know, wherever the need is in the district. So it'd be a district revenue line, fundraising line.
We just have to be careful with advertising that it's an athletic sponsorship.
Mhm.
So if we ever started to move away from dollars not going to athletics, people would, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think we
So,
have
I
to
mean,
split it.
If
Yeah.
somebody wanted to do a banner for theater, like, or something.
Mhm.
It would just, go yeah,
Yeah, I think, so
I
to
think
me,
that's very good.
that's where, yeah, exactly.
Like if
So-
they want to sponsor, like if, I don't know, I always say robotics, I don't know, because I always think that they need the love. If they wanted to, if somebody wanted to sponsor them, like for their season or whatever the year competition.
so I think that's where this could, I think
Kinda
that's where it's, if we look at it, district, because it's gonna start as athletics.
Right.
But it's really, because we look at the budget for next year, athletics, I think it's the only operating budget we increased, so we do think it's balanced for next year. We're gonna talk about fees in a minute. But I want to make sure, like Mel said, I want to make sure it's labeled properly, it's treated right. I don't want to restrict it on ourselves at like, oh, we said it's only for athletics, but now like another group has a need, why can't proceeds go to
Mhm.
some other activity?
But I think when you start to, like, if you were saying this is the Wildcat sponsorship program, so
Mhm.
your money could go to
Right.
any of these things, and people are like, So that's where I think we're just kind of starting with the springboard of like athletics.
Mhm.
And then, like we said, is, we're willing to change things, every year if we have improvements, if we,
Yep.
like we were, when we were talking to Paul Murray, and he was kind of saying, geez, I said Chapman Band, and if I had ever thought it was going to be this kind of amount, I might have thought about, things differently. So we have that opportunity kind of year to year to change some things.
I do like the idea of of the money being housed at the district level though,
Mhm.
even if it's earmarked as a rainy day fund for athletics. I like, especially in the inaugural years, I like the ability for Bride and Alyssa and you to know pennies in, pennies out.
Replacement signs, and
Yeah.
we've got to get, you know what I mean, an account, so we have some.
And the equity piece, so we ensure that, everybody it's equitably distributed. If there's like Special Olympics, we always struggle getting sponsorships for that. So like, it would be nice for them to be included with this too.
Mhm.
That's no question.
Definitely.
Us too. So are we planning on like a template that we sent, like if somebody wants to sponsor, there's a template that they drop their logo and then so they all have a similar look. And who will approve what they say?
We're working on it.
Yeah, this looks-
Which
no, no, that's right. Yeah. No, but it's things that,
Yeah.
things
Yes,
that have-
yeah,
things you have to think of.
we're thinking we're gonna create a Google form and try to link
Yeah,
it
we've
in.
talked to.
Cloud and-
Something, I'm thinking of the
They-
banners that like went up for like the 400 that, there was a template and you dropped in what you wanted to and then.
It could certainly be on the
Okay.
task force team as.
I would love to.
I know.
Yeah.
So we
Because we
talked
start
about,
thinking
Yeah.
of the-
No,
Because there'll be.
we had an internal,
You have to put in.
we had a department team meeting this morning, so Brett was part of it too, and
He does that
thinking of how we can do that, but yeah, because the approval, I think it'll probably happen in the past too, there's certain companies, like if an established moved into town that isn't appropriate to be on a banner at the high school, we're gonna deny that one, right?
Yeah.
vaping or something like
Yeah,
that. would
I mean, that-
not be
The smoke shop.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Right.
Dispensary, I mean, there's
Yeah.
plenty of places,
It's funny
we
that.
could all name it.
I know. They'd probably be the big sponsor, but.
Huge.
But I think back to the, so
Big for them all.
we do want it to, don't want to restrict ourselves out the gate, so I think
Right.
like Mel said, it's gonna be athletics focused, but we just want to make sure it's housed somewhere when we all go away, that it continues on, it isn't too restricted. So I think that's where a
I
district.
think it's a great start and, it's just things, you can see the little light bulbs going off
Yeah,
over my head,
absolutely. There's
so.
a lot.
Every day we keep thinking of.
Yeah.
What about this?
Yeah.
And we'll have maybe,
And it's a transparent initiative, so if, say, none of us are sitting at this table in 2 years, somebody
Right,
knows something
It's a
about,
great foundation,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's not lying with one person.
and we've pulled from other districts, so it's like, we didn't invent this, we just want to make sure we implement it right.
I think just rolled out a thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? Brian, who's doing the hustling on this? Who's our sales person?
Oh, soliciting company,
Going door to door.
Me and Amy might be on a field trip soon.
Yeah, we're all in it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like the best.
We're all.
Yes, well, yeah, that's the theme song.
That's,
You guys are gonna get a nice little.
After we get the budget done.
Betsy actually helped, she was giving Kelly some input on this, so.
Sure, advertise here,
Yeah.
walk
Yeah.
around, advertise here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So the hustling of that, the actual soliciting, the hustling with this project, it's,
Thank you.
yeah, there's people hustling to get this done, but I hear what you're saying, like, who's gonna solicit?
Yeah, and Tracy, I'm sure Tracy would have some ideas too. 'Cause
Mhm.
She's active on the
Business owner.
Rotary.
Rotary, yeah.
Well, We just
We
there.
actually,
Soliciting on.
we floated.
Yeah.
Monday night.
Right.
Put a little.
We did, they were our test market Monday night, they're like. "It's a good idea."
Okay, good.
Excellent. Any other questions? You're looking at this?
Okay.
Contracts, anything for contracts and procurement?
Yes. We have. Nothing in the packet here, but. Okay, for contracts and procurement. Oh, if you drive around back, our vans are here.
Yes.
Leave seats?
Yes.
They have everything.
Oh,
They're registered, they're insured, they're added to the fleet list.
Alyssa's gonna sleep so.
We might even have a driver.
I feel like we should pull it.
Right?
Name one. of them.
Our amazing,
We put 2 more on order.
The bossy bus.
Bossy bus.
I like that. Actually, I like that, the Bossy bus. They listened to me, so I used to say to the kids, why don't I do that? Because I'm Mrs. Bossy and I said so.
so the vans are amazing. Faith's gonna get them set up on routes. So we'll be using both for transportation. One will be like an add to our fleet, and then we're gonna take one older van and move it over to maintenance. And we're also looking with a non-committal, ordering 2 more now to hopefully have within the next 2 years. But we just feel like if we don't, until things change, and who knows with everything that's going on in the world, like, there's no commitment. Yes, tariffs. There's no commitment to ordering. We can order because they know that they can sell to someone else.
Mhm.
And so. But yes, we're excited about the vans, and then, I am going to. Let's see, contracts,
Those were good ones lately.
yep. Town council on April 7th. I mentioned that we're gonna solicit for a 5-year contract for our ELA curriculum.
Mhm.
So April 7th, I'll be at town council. Talking about that 5-year contract. And then also council is going to be acknowledging the Chapman band gift as well. And just to clarify why we go to council for the contract, it's not approving the contract or the funding of the contract. It's approving a 5-year
Yeah.
contract. Law allows up to 3, anything more than 3 needs school committee and council approval.
Will they vote that night?
I believe so. It was on
They did.
last meeting and it got
Okay.
referred to budget management.
Okay.
So I'm going to budget management on the 7th at 6:30. And then the full meeting, council meeting is at 7:30, and it sounds like they'd like to take action that night.
Right. Any questions? Moving on to fiscal year 26 budget planning.
So budget planning, just a couple updates before we get into the fees. Lots of actions and lobbying and legislative actions and folks, Mel and I are in a million different meetings with superintendents, business administrators. And so there are letters going to the state advocating for more funding. The business administrator one that I am part of, I went to in Hingham last week, and the focus was on, there's three areas to talk about advocacy for. It was Chapter 70 overhaul of the formula, circuit breaker funding, and then Prop 2.5. In that group, at least the business administrators, our recommendation was to the advocacy of, for now, money to help us right now immediately. What's the quickest way to help us right now would be fully funding circuit breaker, and then longer term would be the Chapter 70 funding formula. We didn't want to get involved in advocating anything to do with Prop 2.5. I think those that feel would be dead on arrival anyways, any changes to Prop 2.5, but our advocacy, at least for business administrators, was focusing on Chapter 70 long-term and circuit breaker short-term. I think Mel's probably the same in your groups, right?
Same groups now, they're kind of talking a lot about some of the funding that's been proposed to be pulled back in the state levels. We're not really affected by that, but there's a lot of communities that are affected by it.
Lawrence.
So that's another, yeah.
Fall River.
Yeah.
So that was my other update, was just from the federal level. Feds, there was an article about cutting 106 million to Massachusetts. Weymouth's not on that list. There's about 20 districts.
Rural.
And then some cities, though, is very, I was alarmed at, so it was like roughly, it was 20. Stoughton 1.5 it was everything ranging from like tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, but then you get into like New Bedford, 15 million, Springfield, 47 million. So the only thing I can surmise there is that in addition to like funding for staff and stuff, it was probably funding for building improvements, HVAC improvements.
They said HVAC, I read that.
Literacy was on the list too.
Yeah, and for the learning gaps, some of that. Yeah.
Which is. Is
And
there any talk on those, on either one of your calls on like flexibility with funding, like so? Either within the circuit breaker or Chapter
So
70.
it's really
like you would
just
have.
advocacy at this point, like
Yeah,
they're saying, focusing on circuit breaker because that's a lot quicker to do than reimagine the formula for Chapter 70, which doesn't seem even possible.
Or even the
anytime soon.
2.5, that's gonna
Yeah.
be years.
So circuit breaker would support everybody. They talked about the percentage.
Yep.
On that,
Yep.
related to this, thanks.
Yep.
Was there any discussion in either of those groups about more fair or equitable distribution to the millionaire tax revenue dollars. Right now, last year, 75% of that money went to 25% of the students. Is there any conversation about advocating with the governor to, make that a more fair distribution?
I think MASS
Yeah, I think
And
that's-
MTA is also
and
taking.
Yeah.
MPA, yeah.
I
Yes,
actually asked when I was at the State House last week, and they said that it was going to community colleges. It was mostly community colleges that got it and not, because I use that exact sentence and they, yeah, for the free tuition, and then free school lunches is another thing that they said, that's where they focus the money.
so,
I don't know that that's fairly accurate in that answer.
Right.
That's that question, Mary.
but to answer your question, Gus, part of Mel's MASS, Mass Superintendents, the template that's going around does specifically ask that, requests around one-time FY 24 fair share act surplus funding and proposed FY 26 budget line increases. So at least at this,
The other thing that happened for FY 26 is that fiscal year 25, the split was more towards education funding than transportation. FY 26, the split is more transportation than for education. But then within the education piece, as I said, 75% of the money goes to 25% of the students across the state.
Yep.
We get nothing.
yeah, just we get a free lunch. literally.
Thank you.
That's not, I mean, yeah, which is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not what we thought we were getting.
Anything else?
So on to,
Fees?
yeah, fees, actually the next fees and rates, it's really just revisiting now that we've had some time. Looking at the draft proposal for fees and then looking at the draft proposals for rates. As Dana pointed out last school committee meeting, we do have some time before you guys would vote in May. And we would come back here in our May meeting with the final proposal for you guys to potentially take action on, and by then we'll have more information on the town budget. So where we are at the budget process is, actually I'll get into that at the end. So for fees, I just want to bring this up again. The idea of 5% increase across all fees. The other thing Alyssa and I are just looking for feedback on is, we did pilot the family cap. I think it shows that we lose some feedback from you guys, but data shows that pilot is working for family cap. There was concerns that it was going to really negatively impact us. It's not, it's a handful of families that hit that cap, and it's great that they do hit that cap. And then also we still have on here, we had the middle school fees, the footnote of the funds from the town that we would project a fee of 175. What I would like to for next time come back with is, the removal of the pilot and make it a full family cap permanent. And then we would just hold on middle school sports, knowing that it was presented that fees aren't needed next year for middle school sports. So we would just maintain that this remains blank or zero. And the only other recommendation we would look at, Mel and I have talked a lot about this, the idea of this program for banners. And that's what Mel mentioned earlier, like specifically for athletics, is the idea of as we roll this out. If we think about a 5% increase on our athletic fees, we collect, I think Rob's projecting 280,000, but even if you took 250,000, you're talking about 12,500. That's what the 5% increase would yield. So if we opted to raise fees for every other user, because it is truly driven by the costs for those programs to run, and we can no longer supplement the operating budget. So Mel and my proposal would be across the board 5% increase of fees with the exception of athletics, and that would be supplemented through this new banner program for next year.
Can I ask a question on the family cap?
Mhm.
How do you know if someone's hit the family cap, especially if they're playing like different sports? So like if,
It's all captured in family ID.
so like, so it's already in there.
We're gonna
Again,
report to
ignorant
see.
to athletics, I don't understand it. So it's already in there that they know.
Yeah, I think it's like maybe 5 to 10 families. Like it's not huge
Yeah.
dollars. It's,
I assume like bigger families
Yeah.
probably hit it pretty quick. Go ahead. I heard you.
I was just trying to edit myself. So your proposal, Brian, is not not to do athletic fee increases.
correct. Increase all fees 5%, excluding athletics, remain at the levels that we are for athletic fees,
And no wait, I'm sorry, what'd you say about middle school fees?
no middle school fees.
So we just, yeah. Yeah, I guess. I like that. I like that idea.
But
No, there's no but. It's you, I think the language you used, you said because the banner program would supplement the 5% increase that you would have normally asked us to vote on. And this is when I was editing myself. And I stopped myself from saying, but now I feel like I have to say it. I'm not sure why we would be supplementing anything because
no, you're right.
the budget said they're gonna finish with $16,000
You're,
banked.
yep, I stand corrected. You're right that it.
Oh, no, and I wasn't trying
No,
to call you
no,
out.
No,
I
I'm
love you,
not,
but-
no, no, but it's a good clarification that it was presented that would be a potentially a surplus in athletics, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
I guess if we were spreading the pain of 5% across.
I hear you.
Yeah, but you are 100% right. I don't want to misrepresent that there's a projected shortfall in athletics. We don't know yet, but
Yeah,
yeah,
hopeful surplus.
shortfall. Yeah, I'm not saying the shortfall because it was presented that there would be likely a surplus.
And that's what we voted. We voted with that budget in our heads.
And it's the only budget we've increased.
Yeah. I just wanna, when we, I mean, I know Gus is here and I can't tell who's on the webinar, but this was a very public process. The athletic budget was presented to us numerous times, so I just want to be consistent with how we talk about it and the information that we do consistently present to the public. For many reasons, but so anyway, I'm on board with your plan of not increasing fees for athletics. I'm also on board with the plan for the banner program. And I think we understand we might have to use that money if we need to patch some holes in the dinghy.
Yep.
Yeah, because those are all projections based on what we think people are gonna
Yep,
pay.
Right.
Totally,
So-
totally, oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and next year's gonna be volatile anyway,
Yeah, right.
economically.
but even this year, if we have to transfer between cost centers, that's a school committee transfer vote that we'll have to bring at the end of the
We have to
year.
talk about it.
Yeah, so if there is a shortfall in a cost center specific, school committee, I can figure out how to transfer and make that whole. It'd be a vote of the school committee this year. Then for next year, it would be that if there's a shortfall, it would be hopefully offset with that new revenue from the banner program. But again, the point is well taken that the operating budget for athletics increased staffing wise and expense wise. We increased both. And on the revolving side, it was presented that the revenues would exceed the expenditures. So we have like a small surplus into the year. And that's still to be determined.
Yep, and I acknowledge that.
Quick question. For school meals, I know that they're free lunches and these are the additional, like if they want a second lunch.
Second,
The
lunch.
way that we could add in, like
Right.
if somebody wants an additional lunch, just so if someone else is looking at it, they're like, okay, what is?
Oh,
You know what I
yeah,
mean, like if it's
that's a
like,
good point.
Like
We
an
could,
asterisk of. these
yeah,
are
like this
additional,
is,
just so
this is
people know.
I'll
additional.
put it up where it says school meals.
Because
Additional.
and if we do additional, because I think if we were to lose free meals, this would be the.
This,
fee.
this
So-
would be
Right.
free.
Right, so for right now,
Yeah.
it's additional, but we want to be careful,
Right,
because I
so
think if we lost funding for
good
free
point.
meals,
so we
it would.
Yeah,
we
so
can update,
Might happen.
Yeah,
can
so if it
update for
goes through, They
additional.
get their free meal, but if they want a second one, then they pay,
Yes.
right? Yeah, so I mean, I get that, but just so
But
other
if we
people
lost
get
the
it.
free meals, Alyssa, that would be the cost of the.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's based on federal rates.
and then
Set those.
do the teachers get a free meal or staff get a free
No.
meal?
No,
too? So
they
they,
pay.
they are actually
Bill it.
paying, so
Which Liz tells me it's the best.
It's amazing,
Deal
$12.50. I wish they would deliver them here.
We can start
So I mean, maybe they are like at the bottom of the list or something, so you can see that they just always pay. They don't get the asterisk.
Can I just talk edits while that's a good point, Mary Ellen. So,
I'll move it.
we're gonna strike the 3-year pilot for family cap. We're
Yep.
gonna remove
Yep,
the middle school, verbiage there on the fees. And have it be 0. We're gonna increase all fees 5% with the exception of athletics. And then for school meals, we're gonna put maybe in parentheses after school meals during universal program. And then below we'll put primary lunch additional meal, secondary lunch additional meal.
Right.
And then if universal meals ever to go away, we'll have to undo that language just to be consistent.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Maybe can we see the subheading that literally says school meals?
Yep.
yes,
Maybe just a little asterisk that says.
Yeah.
School meal, while the USDA grant funding, or
Funds. Yep.
Exists.
whatever the program is called.
Yeah, because even breakfast.
yep, that's where I have it.
Right, because it would be
We're on the
breakfast.
same page.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
That's what
sorry.
I thought.
No,
Sorry.
no, that's good.
No, that's just where I have it.
Always
Yep.
late to the game.
No, no.
No, you're on your game.
And are we striking middle school athletics altogether? Are we leaving it there
We're
with
leaving it there,
nothing
but
for now?
we're removing the bold.
Okay, yeah.
the Bold below because when we do charge, we'll have to look at it again and that, I don't know that 175 will be a real number.
Yeah.
Okey-dokey. And we added photography and the AP.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's not as pronounced here but Alyssa did have a lighter highlight for,
Right, yeah, I don't know why I didn't come
Clubs
out,
and
but yeah.
activities.
yeah, so we did find out from.
Yes, I learned something too.
Yes, we learned something. So,
Digital photography is 30.
Yep.
35 millimeter film is 40.
yes. An AP research and seminar rates here, and then these are proposals from the high school. This one's literally what the cost for the exams are next year. So it's not like it's not,
It's not a profit center.
no,
It's just, you just pay to take the
Yes.
test.
yeah.
Yeah, do they is there assistance for those AP exams? There is, right?
So I don't know for certain the answer, but what I do know is any fee.
It's on is it on that form?
I
Where-
feel like Karen has said
feel
there
like it
is,
was.
yes.
Oh,
It is, yes.
Like
on
the
the
hardship,
page, on the
yeah.
hardship.
Yes, it's on,
right?
it has, yes, thank you. It has that and like
Added
other
it.
fees.
Okay.
And then within, Mel and I were looking at handbook and comparing policy that there is provisions in there that building principals have the authority to work with families on any fees. And
That's it.
that's what they do.
And that's another area that Principal Monahan moved the collection for as well. I think we fell behind a little bit in the past on collecting the AP fees, yeah.
Any other questions on fees? We'll bring this back in May with those edits.
I have two questions. When middle school sports, like let's say in 3 years, there is a fee for them, I don't know. Would the middle school fee contribute to the overall family cap for athletics?
I was wondering that too.
Great question.
That's a good question.
We have time to think about it.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Because they don't do it in,
So we might
It's-
consider including it, but raising the cap slightly.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation,
Yeah.
but we'll look at that more
Okay,
closely when
yeah.
it comes.
Um,
Let's get that noted.
so the other question I have comes from an interaction I had with a parent. She was wondering if, so her kids were new to the high school this year and she didn't anticipate like all the fees that new families kind of learn that they are incurring. And she wanted to know if there was one place like where all the fees were, and I did point her to last year's version of this. But it doesn't have like the class fees.
The dues, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, the dues and there's something else. I forget.
I think we should add them.
So, okay, that's,
Class dues, yeah, we're not raising,
That's
it's not a fee we're raising.
Maybe Chromebook, if they have to,
They're on,
that's on.
that's on.
I did add that, yeah.
that's down bottom.
Do we know, and who sets the class dues?
I don't think we've touched it. I don't think we've touched it.
Ever.
Who is?
Forever.
Because
So
it's
who's-
kind of fun.
That would be part, it's in the handbook, so it'd be part of,
So it's gonna have
high
to,
school.
but like, who's the oversight? it's not a school committee thing, is it? Because it's a
Mhm.
fundraiser,
Who collects?
Well,
is it?
we approved the handbook.
It's like
Yeah.
$10
Oh.
freshman year.
But is it, so it's in the handbook?
It's in it's in their handbook.
Yeah, but isn't it the
It's policy
boosters
that
group?
we-
Because then they.
No, it's
No.
the class
It's a class,
advisors.
it's each class.
Yeah, class advisor.
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
and it goes up each year.
And they try to
Oh, we
collect
should
it.
be
for you,
approving that
you
then.
know,
That
if you
should
want
be
to
on
put
here.
hands, you have
We
to
can add
be
it.
Up on your dues, up on your
We've
community service.
It's in,
thought about
it's in the handbook.
Yeah.
When we do the handbooks.
Have it.
As this mom was making, she made a really good point, and I actually couldn't answer all the fees for her because the list is actually.
Because it all goes towards their like senior activities.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm,
they break it down so it's supposed to be easier. More-
yes. Yeah,
$10, I think it's
Yeah.
10 your freshman year.
yeah. As,
Anyway.
if it was all in one place though, I
Mhm.
think it would be easier for people to
Yeah, it's,
anticipate.
Is that in the?
It might be good for when the Chapman moving up,
This is
Exactly.
I think to discuss it, that
I
presentation.
don't hand them this. like,
Enjoy it.
Grade 10, oh, yeah.
But it might be a good thing when they do their like move up thing.
Yeah.
Move up.
I think
Okay.
it's, it is good to, I think, put it on here.
Yeah.
Cause even myself, who's also,
And yeah, and you can say that, but there's like so much coming at you on a move up day. You're
Yeah.
not like, I didn't hear whatever she
Yeah.
said about class dues.
cause even as an employee, I'm not exempt from the fees. I failed to pay the AP fee
Oh, no.
and the principal sent me a nasty, no.
Yeah.
Like, who's gonna ask Brian if he's gonna pay that?
So I think it's good to have it somewhere where it's just clear.
Yeah, maybe do families still use the community engagement center like when they're new, when they come in?
It's really registration center, honestly.
Yeah.
I think because of staffing.
But
Yeah, I
at Chapman in the high school, we can, I mean,
Yeah.
it's on the website. They could have this in the office.
Yeah.
But I think having it somewhere,
Let me see if Kelly, is it like, do you think people are accessing the website more?
So yes, and great feedback from that. So yes, and they're still struggling to like find stuff. But I will say for newer families to town, it's hard to find things because they actually don't know what they're looking for.
Like the program of studies, you're like, where's that thing that tells me about the courses? And Yeah.
Right.
Yes, or right, even if they
Right.
know to look for that.
That, yeah.
So it's,
'Cause I think the handbook has everything. When you see here, it's gonna have everything, but it can't have everything.
Yeah, because people tell us all the time that handbook is just too dense
For
and it's
instance.
impossible to read through.
It's fine if you can search, like sometimes I know like if you can search for things in the
Like,
handbook,
if
it's
a
okay.
full Google Doc.
If it's a
searchable.
Google Doc, but if you can't search, it's like I'm not paging through
Yeah,
100 pages to it.
yeah, it's good thought.
But that would be good. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
It's on the fees, Danielle, you want me to ask it now or later?
No, that's fine.
Thanks a lot. Just on the athletics stuff. So the latest iteration of the athletics budget presentation forecast pointed to us $15,000 or $16,000 surplus. Are we going to be saying that that's the accurate one? Or are we still gonna wait a little bit to see how it winds up? Finally resolving itself as we get to the end of the school year.
I'm watching the projection closely myself.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. And then, in terms of the fee increase for fiscal year 26 overall, as it relates to the budget request, I thought that the intent of increasing fees was to potentially help address a potential $1.9 million shortfall. So if the town does come through with the $92 million budget request, then these fee increases would be not necessary in fiscal year 26 or anything.
Yeah, so timeline wise, that's what Dana asked to clarify. We'll have more information by May when the committee votes this, so it could be that. I mean, I don't
Right, but-
think likely, but I could say no increase at all.
Right, so it was tied to, I mean, the community advocacy around the
Page
92
57, yeah.
was also predicated around not just the flood fees, but fees in general, not needing to be increased. They came across with the $92 million.
High school handbook, yeah.
So I'm okay with it, thanks. Thank you.
Page 47 in the student handbook
Yes,
is all the dues.
Oh,
And then.
thank you.
Yes, right here,
did
online.
you wanna see it?
And then,
Good.
and then Terry sends out
Oh.
messaging. Terry
So you pay
Fitzgerald is the
See what
finance
you did there.
one person, which she sends out messaging through the portal. Because she has tab.
Oh, all
every
right,
year. So
so,
when you enroll, which now makes sense to me, ninth grade, you're gonna pay 15, then it can continues 15, 15, 40, 75.
and so that starts once the kid is like actually in the high school, that starts.
Mhm.
So yeah.
The
so this-
obligation goes into the cashier's tab, and then you get emailed invoices, if you will.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just. If we can just find a way to put this in front of families.
Mhm.
For that, so they're not, just so that they have a little heads up.
Yeah, I think on the website, and then they could even print and laminate it in the office if
Oh.
people go into the office.
There's a lot of welcome to the high school,
Yeah.
right?
Make a
Yeah.
banner with it.
Yeah.
Very little
Banner.
free.
Put it on the soft.
Eighth grade's been my most expensive year.
Yeah, it keeps going.
Second mortgage for all these field trips.
We take the F out of faith.
Yeah. There is no F. Anything.
Move on to rates. So rates, again, no changes from last time. We have proposed an increase of roughly 2.5% to the ESY rates as well as substitute rates. And then the final document is the new for the committee, not new in practice, is the game worker and coverage rates when we're paying workers to do things that are not stipends within the contract.
And the only change based on the committee asked last meeting was the trainer went from 50 to 60 down the bottom.
Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
So like fees, these rate sheets would be part of potential vote of the committee. Any questions on any of the rates?
Bigger font.
Say bigger font.
Bigger font.
Brian, can we add I'm sorry, can I ask Brian a question?
Yes.
Brian, can we add the scoreboard person to the softball?
Oh, thank you. That didn't get added. Gotta listen.
I do. Because I put my glasses on. School board, yes.
Move that from the whiteboard
Mm.
person to the school board person.
Yeah, the whiteboard person.
Now that we are gonna have a scoreboard, it's so exciting.
There's gonna be like a ribbon cutting and.
Yep.
Something exciting.
It's exciting.
I'll wear the unicorn costume.
I'm also wondering, okay, Brian, one more question.
You'll be selling banners while you're doing it. Saying on Pleasant Street.
I'm also wondering, can we I know, I don't know if this is a question for Rob or Larry, but I'm just gonna ask it.
He's not there.
No, I know he's not, I don't. This. So we started this conversation during one of the athletics meetings, and I think we kind of set it aside.
Mhm.
I don't feel resolved in my heart. So I'm supposed to laugh about that. I just want to make sure that if we're paying somebody to be a site admin, let's say hypothetically for, give me a sport, volleyball. That they are the site admin for volleyball and they're not also the site admin for a soccer game that's happening at the same time. And I understand that, I think when I brought this up, we were talking about how it's hard to find people sometimes and some of these positions require understanding of the sport, understanding of the building and I completely respect it and get it. I just also think if we actually have the dedicated site admins getting paid to be a site admin for a game or for a series of games for one sport, then they need to be there. Because when things do happen, this happened this winter, when things do happen, the parents are looking for that administrator, and if they're not there and because they're doing a double duty, well, things can go wrong.
Yeah, I think it should be staffed per event really, because what can happen is, and I'll just speak because my daughter plays volleyball. Sometimes it's 3 matches, sometimes it's 5 matches. It depends on what who's won how many. So it's hard to predict. So if you have the kind of back to back, like it's volleyball, you can't say really, it's hard to say volleyball from 5 to 6:30 and then girls soccer from 6:30 to 8. It's hard to staff that because the games don't always hold true those
Yes.
times. So I think you have to probably,
Have a
and
dedicated.
we can find out, I don't know, because this is so new and I know Jeremy did a lot of work with him on this, I'm not sure
Oh.
what it looks like is Jeremy. The intention is that we're going to ask for people that are interested to sign up.
Mhm.
And then he'll post this is who it is, so people know.
Yes, so we know who's at the events for lots of,
Or, yeah,
Yeah,
who
we
it
talked
is.
about noting some sort of
Right.
uniform a little bit, that we understand who is the site manager.
Right.
That'd be awesome.
We could have.
yeah, I was just saying this, we wanted, for safety reasons, want to know who's there, who to access, some way to recognize the site manager with things we talked about, so. And then opportunity for people to.
Yeah.
To be able to participate in.
Do you know where that is in the process in terms of like per fall? Like is athletics utilizing what they're utilizing to solicit and then to schedule and post?
I believe, and I'd have to double check, it's been posted for, there has been.
Okay, posted
It's been shared out, for the spring, I thought there was some.
spring, so we've started it now.
Yeah, but let me circle back on that and I'll get an answer.
I think for the committee, it's to know, now that we have, spring is here, how do we know who's doing,
Mhm.
you know? boys
Because if you're
lacrosse?
at Legion for a rugby game or something, like you probably have no idea.
Right,
You have
but
sea
they-
of
we know-
adults.
There is another,
Yeah.
there's another sheet that does track who's at every event.
Yep.
Like right as of now, I haven't looked at it recently, but, whatever the event is, it does a running list, so that's filled in. As the dates come up and.
Yeah, maybe we can, maybe me and Mel can take a peek at that.
Yeah.
Terry has it because she used to.
And figure out where that should live and,
Yeah,
we've done a lot of work. Let's make sure that it's actually executed properly and.
Yeah.
And is a good living document that's adhered to and visible to the people that it needs to be visible to.
It might be helpful for us to have that too, only if,
They reach out to us.
because they reach out to us, if somebody reaches out to us and says like, there's an incident happening at the hockey game. We don't see an administrator, we can see, and then we can say, you might not know Mr. Byrne, let's just say for an example, this is what he's wearing. Find this person.
Like you said, that for us, for all of us, like you said, from the parent to you, to me, to Byron, to Robbo, like that's just too many. So for us, we really are trying to figure that out
Yeah.
so that we break that
Yeah.
whole. Kind of, everybody's on their phones trying to figure out the guy that's just standing there, like, that's there, he's just not,
Right.
like, no one knows.
Better with their name. And they have a shirt on.
We recognize that's happening.
I think it's a great idea to revisit this now and make sure that,
happening for spring.
what's the level of accessibility, availability, who should be able to access that? If you get a call from somebody in the community, you could potentially look and say, oh, okay, so-and-so was there or will be there.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether it's coming or it's past.
Yeah.
So,
What happens if they don't have it? Is there somebody that, is there a
Mel
backup?
gets the call.
Yeah, Mel gets,
Yeah, is there a
Gotta
backup?
track down somebody else.
we have that with any, like when teams are on the road, we
Yeah.
actually have like that calling tree, like
You do.
if Mel or I get the phone call, everyone else has been reached and not contacted, you know what I mean? So there is that.
Yeah, it makes.
So I guess it-
happens.
And it's a newer thing that, we have site admins. It used to be like the athletic director was in the area. And now that we have Lovell and
Mhm.
Legion and we just are in a lot of different, but we've always been in a lot of different places. I coached, 15, 20 years ago, we were at Lovell. It was really Pingree. You were kind of there on your own. It was, you kind of picked up your cell phone, but I think now the expectation, and I think that's something that we're trying to review as well, as there's only so many people. So
Yes.
there's an athletic director, there's a principal, and then there's deans, but they have contracts as well. So it's like to expect Karen or Rob to be at every event at the same time all the time is impossible too.
Yes.
So we're trying to really understand what's the safest thing, or if there is not a site manager somewhere, like what is the protocol?
Right.
If there isn't a site
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us to know too, like. If it doesn't happen. We're trying.
Yeah,
We'll-
like there's certain events we'll
This is
always
so-
have someone
so
there,
much-
like
yeah.
we talk about wrestling or hockey or football. But we always say like, you always call 911, So someone usually gets in touch with all of us to understand what's happening, but
yeah, what is the chain of communication in terms of
Yeah.
if I don't know how often it may happen, if it even happens, but if there's not a site admin, there's gotta be somebody that can be contacted to say, hey, if something happens at this event, this is what you would do, or maybe it's a site admin from the other team, maybe it's.
And the coaches know their chain of
Mm.
what's supposed to happen, but like the parents in the stand probably don't realize that the coach always texted or is doing all those things, so.
Yeah. And I don't think this is gonna happen, but we just don't wanna be in a predicament where it's not transparent and we're hearing about an incident 2 days later and we're coming to you and being like, hey, I heard this incident happened. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, no, it did. Okay, well, and I don't expect that happening with anybody at this table, but that clearly happened in the past with some types of incidents that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, not too much happens that we don't.
No,
hear about pretty quickly.
Not these days.
Not too many days go by.
You can't prevent everything, but I guess the question you could ask is, what was in place to
Right.
potentially
Yeah.
prevent that, or what was the response to that situation? That's really,
and just knowing,
Exactly.
just knowing that it happened, you know
yeah,
what I
how
mean?
was it reported?
Not like a surprise incident happened.
Mm-hmm.
We're learning about it on Turtle Boy.
So I think question. Maybe I missed some of this. I'll be surprised at myself if I missed it, but was there a description of what the site manager's responsibilities were gonna be at some conversation
I was just gonna ask that.
in the prior meeting? Was there?
I don't,
Did I doze off at
I
that?
think we went through.
Yeah, I do think there was a document.
There's, yeah, a document of who needs to be at different events.
I'm talking about what is it? I'm saying.
What are their duties?
responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah, and I don't know how in
Did I hear
depth,
somebody also say that person would be visibly identified either with the vest or jacket or something?
that's been discussed, so I think it's gonna take us kind of coming back to it. I think the first layer of this is we've started to create what should be in place and what should happen, and now it's kind of checking back in to see just what is happening currently and what are the steps we need to take to make sure it's very tight, or
Right,
as
okay,
tight. as
because
we
I mean,
can
in the past, in the past, the AD would know if there would be a potentially contentious void
Yep.
Yeah,
against the high level.
Yeah.
Well, there's always been a lot of energy, right?
Yep.
And so, the AD would always be, and additional staff would always be present at those particular games, like using basketball as an
Yeah.
example, but it's soccer, it's also happened in
Yeah.
soccer and football. Where, if a student or two got a little bit too disruptive, they would be asked to calm down or leave. But that was the responsibility of typically the AD or another admin. That was it.
yeah,
Would site manager now be responsible along with the AD if they're also there, or some other administrator who happens to be at the game?
Usually, like you said,
That's
yes, they're there.
Their responsibility.
Yeah, we kind of, like you said, that usually the principal or the athletic director is at any of those events,
Sure.
like you're saying. And even like, not even necessarily contentious, but like if we play Braintree, they're always there because they're just so close that you assume the population is going to be large. Anytime you think the population is going to get larger, you need crowd control. So it's not necessarily because it's Braintree, it's just because they're so close to us that we would expect a lot of group coming to that
Yeah,
game.
sure.
So yeah, you'll see Karen or Rob at any of those events.
But in terms of a job description, if you will, so I didn't miss that. I haven't seen one specifically put together. We're still kind of working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what I'm hearing?
so there was,
Fine.
yep, you're absolutely right. So there was two pieces to this whole conversation months ago when we started it. There's the rate sheet,
Yeah.
and the development of the procedures, which Jeremy will revisit with Rob to see where he's at with the procedures.
Right. Because initially this whole exercise was really driven by equity of assignment, right?
Right.
We didn't
Yes.
want one or two individuals that seemed to always be getting the gigs and collecting the payments and the stipends. So, I mean, that was the original driver, was what I noticed.
yeah.
It evolved into this.
It's also
I think
making
it's great.
sure, yeah, that somebody is actually there, that we can identify that person. There's certainly a access equity, if you want to say, call it, to
Yeah, we wanted to add,
those events, but you're right, and probably what you were just describing happens naturally in terms of conversation word of mouth, but I think it would be smart of us to capture it in a little bit more
yeah,
detail.
document.
So that site managers are debriefed on what it is they should be doing, just like a scorekeeper is debriefed on how, I mean,
And that's how this came about, is that
Yes.
we wanted to add the athletic trainer fee. And school committee was like, wait a minute, we haven't we added to what? So that was the rate sheet, right? And then
Yeah.
I think the union had expressed concerns around it, just making sure we're posting this. So it came from both those areas. So that's what led to the rate sheet and then the procedures that,
Right.
yep. So
If you-
we'll have to come back with the procedures for Rob.
Few other procedures with group emails for athletic teams, for coaches, so we're making sure that communication is done the proper way, so there's things we're looking at
Thank you.
to tighten that up.
ESY rates,
Questions on it?
I don't think I have. Is it?
Part of what is presented, ESY rates,
ESY rates.
sub rates, and athletic coverage. The ESY and sub rates, proposed increases of 2.5%.
Yes, and this is non-contractual.
Where asterisk is the contractual reference. So these rates are non-contractual. However, it was bargained with unit C and D. That if it's our staff, they would get their contractual rate.
So just anybody from the outside.
We're voting on it at the same time.
Yes, ideally.
Any questions from the committee?
Wait, I'm sorry. You're proposing what increase?
2.5.
Yeah.
Roughly 2.5. We do 2.5, we might round to like a quarter. It could be really difficult to manage when you have like 23 cents versus 25 cents.
And with the rates, these rates last year, I know, the rates that we had last year,
Mhm.
did we do okay recruiting people to work?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, they might have been the only. I think Meg would say yes, she was able to staff fully for ESY
I think they're pretty much staffed for this year. too.
already for this year.
great.
Which I don't think has ever happened to this. really.
And with a lot of our staff,
Yeah.
which is great.
It is great.
Yeah, you're gonna get a better product for sure. There's more expense to it, but you're gonna get,
Worth it.
yeah.
Consistency is
Mhm.
huge.
Budget updates, the only thing I had, we've gone over budget updates, just, we did after the school committee's vote last week. Sent over to the mayor as we always do. So it's our small pack we put together, which is our budget request. And then just for the committee to see here. We include, that what Mel and I are projecting of the 92 million request. Just what we're seeing from the state and the town on projected revenues. We're anticipating out of 1.9, and we've done a lot of work working with Jeremy on identifying how we would address that $1.9 million cut. So the budget still goes through the town process. We've had lots of conversations and support of his office on what our numbers are and mean, and we're prepared to address any shortfalls. And then the final piece is our full needs list.
No change to it. What is it?
Nothing changed, so you guys voted, so nothing, if anything were to change. Well, once we know a number, we'll come back to the committee and talk about how we get to that number, whatever that number is. But for now, it's, we wait until a couple more weeks before the mayor's office proposes their budget to council. And we'll have a budget sub in early May. If there's a need to have one before that, we can certainly do that, but if we hold that timeline, we council may, I don't have the timeline in front of me, May 13th, maybe.
When does kindergarten registration close?
April 1st was the date to get kind of like the security at your neighborhood school.
What happens if you feel with enrollment, we have to add? Does that get put on here? Like say.
We had to add a teacher
A
because of,
yeah.
we don't, based on what we're seeing right now, we don't see that, but yeah,
Okay.
we'd have to come back and talk about that. Yeah, if we saw a huge spike over the
Right.
summer, but we feel like our numbers right now are pretty solid from years past of where we've been.
Any questions for the committee?
So usually what the April one is capturing is like our current residents, the kids are in school, they know they're, so then the summertime is a little bit more of the people moving in, moving out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like your kids are already in that have already.
Yeah, like our secretaries at the school level, like they know all their families, they've sent everything out to the families. Here at the pre-K, like they all know, so it's really just someone who might be new to the community after this date. And I'm pretty confident that anyone who registered before April 1 is getting their homeschool, like their, I should say neighborhood school or,
Questions?
That's all I have, Chair.
Anything further?
Thank you.
Okay.
If folks, they
Oh,
can,
yeah.
if
Is there
the,
anybody- I can't tell if there's anybody.
so Q&A,
What's the day test?
raise your hand, I guess, or type into the Q&A, a question or comment.
There's one more. It's just Elizabeth and. Yeah, maybe one of, oh, it might be Christine. Okay, I'm gonna close public comment and I will take a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, everybody.
I know, right?